Hello, friends. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we begin an exciting journey into the fascinating world of British coins, focusing especially on the 10 new pence coins from 1975 and 1976. These coins might look small, but they carry a huge part of history, culture, and value. By the end of this full series, you'll understand why they are so important, how they were made, and why collectors around the world want to own them. Before we talk about 1975 and 1976 specifically, let's go back a little in time. The United Kingdom used a very complicated money system before 1971. The old system was called pounds, shillings, and pence. 1 pound was divided into 20 shillings, and each shilling was 12 pence. That means 1 pound was 240 pence. Imagine going to market and having to calculate prices under that system. It was confusing, especially for younger generations. So, in 1971, the British government introduced decimalization. This was a huge step, changing the currency system completely. From then on, 1 pound was equal to 100 new pence. That made life much easier. But to make this work, new coins had to be created. The 10 new pence coin was one of those new coins designed to replace the old 2-shilling piece, which had the same value. The new 10 pence coin was much larger than the one we know today. It measured almost 30 millimeters across, making it one of the bigger coins in circulation at the time. It was made of copper-nickel alloy, giving it a shiny silver look and making it durable for daily use. People quickly became familiar with the coin because it was practical and easy to recognize. On the front side, or obverse, you will see Queen Elizabeth II. The portrait used in the 1970s was designed by Arnold Machin, a sculptor who created a very iconic image of the Queen. She is shown wearing the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, one of her most famous pieces of jewelry. This portrait stayed on British coins for many years and became very familiar across the country. On the backside, or reverse, you'll see a powerful design, the lion passing guard ant. This is a lion walking forward, but looking directly at you. In British tradition, the lion represents strength, courage, and authority. For centuries, the lion has been a royal symbol in the United Kingdom, and placing it on the coin gave the design both elegance and power. By the time we reached 1975 and 1976, the coin had already been in circulation for a few years, and people were completely used to it. Millions of these coins were minted each year. But even though they were common at the time, today collectors look at them with special interest. Part of that is nostalgia. People who grew up in the 1970s remember using these coins every day, whether for buying sweets, paying for bus, or saving up pocket money. Holding one today feels like holding a piece of their childhood. Another part of the story is condition. Not all coins survive equally. Some become scratched, dirty, or worn out after years of use. Others are kept safe in collections and remain shiny and beautiful. Collectors especially look for proof versions of these coins, which were specially made with extra care and never intended for daily circulation. Those coins from 1975 or 1976 can be much more valuable. So, when we talk about the 10 new pence coins of the mid-1970s, we are not just talking about everyday money. We are talking about symbols of history, memory, and pride. And in the next parts of this journey, we will explore them in even more depth, from how many were made, to their designs, to how much they can be worth today. When we think about the 10 new pence coins of 1975 and 1976, it's important to remember that they were part of a much larger story, the story of Queen Elizabeth II's reign and the modernization of British coinage. The Queen's image on the obverse side of these coins was more than just a portrait. It was a powerful reminder of stability and continuity during a time of big changes in society and the economy. Arnold Machin, the artist who designed the portrait, wanted to present the Queen with dignity and elegance. Unlike earlier portraits, this one had a softer, more approachable style. The tiara she is wearing was a gift from Queen Mary and had a deep royal history of its own. For many people, this portrait of Elizabeth II was the one they grew up with. It appeared not only on coins, but also on stamps, becoming one of the most reproduced images of the 20th century. Now let's focus on the reverse side, the lion design. This lion passing guard ant, meaning the lion walking forward with its head facing the viewer, has been part of English heraldry for centuries. It appears on coats of arms, royal crests, and official seals. For the British people, the lion is more than just an animal. It is a symbol of bravery, leadership, and national pride. When people in the 1970s held a 10 new pence coin, they weren't just carrying money. They were carrying a little piece of their country's identity. By 1975, the decimal system was firmly established, and the public had accepted the new coins. The 10 new pence had become a trusted part of daily life. Whether you were buying a loaf of bread, paying for transportation, or saving a small amount in a jar, the coin was there. Its larger size made it easy to handle and hard to lose. In fact, many people recall how the coin had a solid feel, almost giving it a sense of value beyond its face amount. Collectors, however, view these coins through a different lens. They pay attention to details that the average person might ignore. For example, the clarity of the Queen's portrait, the sharpness of the lion's features, the shine of the surface, and even the tiniest minting marks can make the difference between a coin worth only a few pence and one worth many pounds. The coins from 1975 and 1976 may have been minted in large numbers, but only a small fraction survive today in pristine, uncirculated condition. There's also the matter of proof coins. Proof coins are special versions made for collectors. They are struck using highly polished dies and often double-struck to ensure every detail is sharp. The finish is mirror-like, and the designs stand out beautifully. These proof sets were sold directly to collectors and never entered everyday circulation. A proof 1975 or 1976 10 new pence coin is far rarer and more valuable than one that passed through thousands of hands in shops and markets. Another fascinating point about these coins is how they connect to wider history. The mid-1970s was a turbulent time in Britain. The country faced economic challenges, strikes, and social change. Yet, through all of this, coins like the 10 new pence remained stable and familiar. They were small anchors in people's daily lives. That's why today, when collectors look back at these coins, they are not only thinking about their metallic value, but also about what life was like in the Britain of 1975 and 1976. So, the value of these coins isn't just measured in money. It's also measured in memory and meaning. For those who lived through that time, the sound of coins clinking in a pocket or the feel of handing over a shiny 10 new pence piece is something deeply nostalgic. For collectors and historians, each coin is like a miniature time capsule. And in the next part of our journey, we will dig deeper into exactly how many of these coins were made, the minting process, and how to recognize coins that might be especially rare or unique. Now that we understand the background of the 10 new pence coins and the importance of the years 1975 and 1976, let's talk about something every collector wants to know. How many coins were actually minted, and what makes some of them more special than others? The Royal Mint, which is the official body responsible for producing Britain's coins, created millions of 10 new pence coins during these years. In fact, mintages for the mid-1970s were very high, as the decimal system was still relatively new, and the public needed enough coins for everyday use. These coins were struck in the standard copper-nickel alloy, intended for circulation. But even though so many were made, the survival of high-quality examples is a different story. Coins that entered daily circulation quickly lost their shine. They were used in shops, handed back and forth countless times, and developed scratches, dents, and wear. Over years, the details of the Queen's portrait and the lion on the reverse became smooth and less visible. For the average person, that didn't matter. A coin was a coin, but for collectors, condition is everything. That's why uncirculated coins are so important. Uncirculated means a coin that has never been used in daily transactions. It was either stored carefully or preserved in a mint set. Such coins retain their sharp details, brilliant shine, and crisp edges. When a collector finds a 1975 or 1976 coin in uncirculated condition, it's like finding a piece of history frozen in time, untouched by the decades that have passed. Even more special are proof coins. Proof versions of the 10 new pence coins were included in collector sets produced by the Royal Mint. Proof coins were not only made with polished dies, but also handled with extreme care to avoid scratches. They often have a mirror-like background with frosted details on the Queen and the lion. These coins were sold directly to collectors, often as part of annual proof sets, and were never intended to circulate. That's why they are much rarer today and command higher prices in market. Beyond condition and proof sets, there are also what collectors call varieties and errors. Varieties are small differences that occur when design or detail changes slightly from year to year. Errors, on the other hand, happen during minting when something goes wrong. It might be a misaligned strike, a double strike, or even a coin struck on the wrong type of metal blank. Such coins are extremely rare and, when discovered, can be worth far more than normal issues. Although most 1975 and 1976 10 new Pence coins are standard, circulated examples, there are occasional stories of unusual finds. Collectors are always on the lookout for coins that appear slightly different from the rest. It could be a small detail in the lettering, the spacing of the date, or the sharpness of the lion's mane. While many of these may just be normal variations in minting, a few could be unique enough to attract serious collector interest. Now let's step back for a moment and think about what these mintages really mean. In the 1970s, money was not just a tool for buying and selling. It was also a way for governments to express national pride and identity. By producing millions of 10 new Pence coins, the Royal Mint was not only ensuring the smooth running of the economy, but also spreading symbols of the monarchy and the nation's heritage into the hands of every citizen. Each coin carried the Queen's portrait, reminding people of the monarchy, and each coin carried the lion, a reminder of Britain's historic strength. For ordinary people, this symbolism might have been unnoticed in daily life, but for historians and collectors today, it adds a deeper meaning. So, when you look at a 1975 or 1976 coin, think about it in terms of both numbers and stories. Yes, millions were minted, but how many survive today in excellent condition? How many are proof versions? How many might have tiny variations or errors that make them unique? These are the questions that keep collectors excited and make coin collecting such a fascinating hobby. In the next part of our journey, we will explore the physical details of these coins in even more depth. Their size, weight, composition, and how they compare to the modern 10 Pence coin we. When we look closely at the 1975 and 1976 10 new Pence coins, one of the most fascinating aspects is their physical design and technical details. These coins were not just everyday objects for spending in shops. They were carefully crafted pieces of art and engineering, designed to last for decades and to carry meaning for millions of people. Let's start with their size. The original 10 new Pence coin, introduced with decimalization in 1971, was what is often called a large type. It measured 29.5 millimeters in diameter, nearly 3 centimeters across. For comparison, that's almost as wide as a modern 2-pound coin, but much heavier. The weight was about 11.3 grams, which gave it a solid, chunky feel in the hand. If you put a few of them in your pocket, you could really feel the weight compared to smaller coins. The metal used was a copper-nickel alloy, 75% copper and 25% nickel. This combination gave the coins a silvery shine, but not the softness of actual silver. Copper-nickel is extremely durable and resists corrosion, which is why so many of these coins still survive today in decent condition. Even if they lost their shine over the years, they rarely rusted or decayed. Another detail is the thickness and the edge. The 10 new Pence had a reeded or milled edge, meaning those small grooves cut all the way around the coin. Historically, this practice came from the days when coins were made of gold and silver. People used to clip tiny pieces of metal off the edges to steal value, and the reeding made it obvious when that happened. By the 1970s, the coins were no longer made of precious metal, but the tradition of reeded edges continued. It made the coin easier to grip and gave a professional, finished look. The design on the obverse, the front side, featured Arnold Mackin's famous portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. This was the second major portrait of the Queen used on British coins, introduced in 1968. In this image, she wears a Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, a piece of jewelry gifted to her grandmother Queen Mary. The portrait was deliberately elegant and youthful, showing the Queen in a calm but approachable manner. This image became one of the most familiar in the world, as it also appeared on postage stamps and millions of coins across the Commonwealth. On the reverse side, we see Christopher Ironside's heraldic lion, the lion passing guard ant, walking forward with his head facing the viewer, is one of the most ancient and recognizable emblems of English identity. It symbolizes courage, strength, and royal authority. The detail in the engraving shows the lion's mane, its muscular body, and the poised way it steps forward. Above the lion, the words New Pence are written in bold letters, with the number 10 clearly displayed underneath, making the coin easy to identify. If we compare these coins to today's 10 pence, the difference is striking. In 1992, the Royal Mint reduced the size of the coin dramatically. The modern 10p is only 24.5 millimeters in diameter and weighs just 6.5 grams. That means the old large-type coin was not only bigger, but almost twice as heavy. The change was made for practical reasons. Smaller coins are cheaper to produce, easier to carry, and more convenient for modern wallets and vending machines. But many people who grew up with the old coins remember them with nostalgia. They had a presence that modern coins lack. This size and weight made the 1975 and 1976 10 new pence coins memorable. People recall the sound they made when dropped on a counter, the feel of stacking them, and the way they filled up a pocket. For many, these sensory experiences are part of the memory of daily life in 1970s Britain. When we compare them internationally, we see a pattern. Many countries in the 1970s also issued large copper-nickel coins. The German 2 Deutsche Mark, the French 1 franc, and others of similar scale. It was an era when coins were expected to have weight and presence, not just serve as a convenient token. So, the physical details of the 1975 and 1976 10 new pence coins tell us a lot. They were designed to be practical, durable, and instantly recognizable, but also to carry symbols of national pride, the monarch and heraldic lion. Even in something as ordinary as a coin, the British people carried a little piece of their history and identity every day. And in our next section, we'll move from the physical design to the human story. The collectors who treasure these coins today, the market that's grown around them, and how their value is determined by far more than just a number on their face. When people think about the 1975 and 1976 10 new pence coins today, one of the first questions that comes to mind is, what are they worth? The idea of value is at the heart of coin collecting, but it is not always as straightforward as people imagine. For most of the general public, the answer seems simple. If you find one of these coins in a drawer or in a jar of old change, it is still officially worth 10 pence. That is its face value. You could, in theory, spend it even today, though it would look very different from the smaller modern 10p pieces. But for collectors, value goes far beyond face value. The first factor that determines collector value is condition. Coins that have been in circulation for years will show scratches, dents, and wear. The queen's portrait becomes smooth, the lion's details fade, and the coin loses its original shine. These are the kinds of coins most people have tucked away. In the collector's world, such circulated examples are usually worth very little beyond their face value, perhaps a tiny premium if someone needs one for a basic set. But then there are uncirculated coins. These are coins that were never used in shops or exchanged in daily life. They might have been stored away carefully or taken directly from mint rolls when they were first produced. Their surfaces are sharp, their details crisp, and they often still carry the shine of the day they were struck. For collectors, an uncirculated 1975 or 1976 10 pence coin is far more attractive than a worn one and naturally commands a higher value. Even more prized are proof coins. Proof versions were specially made by the Royal Mint for collectors, using polished dies and careful striking techniques. The background has a mirror-like finish, while the designs of the queen and the lion stand out with a frosted appearance. These proof coins were usually sold in presentation cases as part of annual proof sets. Because they were never intended for circulation, many survive in excellent condition. For collectors today, a proof coin from these years is considered much more valuable and can sell for many times the face value. Then there are the rarest finds of all, error coins. Mistakes during the minting process, while uncommon, do happen. A coin might be struck off-center, or could have double lettering, or even be struck on the wrong type of blank. These unusual coins are often discovered by chance and can fetch high prices when verified by experts. While most 1975 and 1976 coins are perfectly ordinary, The possibility of finding an error keeps collectors excited and always on the lookout. Another factor that influences value is rarity in terms of survival. While millions of these coins were minted, only a fraction still exist in high grades of preservation. Time, use, and handling have worn most of them down. The few that remain sharp and uncirculated are far scarcer, and in collecting, scarcity almost always equals higher value. But there's also a more personal kind of value. For many collectors, the worth of these coins isn't just about money. It's about history, memory, and connection. A coin from 1975 or 1976 isn't just a piece of metal. It is a time capsule from nearly 50 years ago. It was part of daily life in Britain during an era of economic challenges, cultural changes, and political debates. Holding one brings back memories of that world. Collectors often talk about the thrill of building a complete set, of filling each gap in an album with the right coin. The satisfaction is not only in owning something valuable, but also in preserving a piece of history. Some collectors even pass their collections down to their children or grandchildren, turning them into family heirlooms. So when someone asks, what is my 1975 or 1976 10 new pence coin worth? The real answer is twofold. In financial terms, most circulated examples are not worth more than a few pence to collectors. But in historical and emotional terms, they are worth much more. They represent a story of a nation, a moment in time, and the enduring appeal of collecting itself. In the next part of our journey, we will zoom out and look at the wider historical context of Britain in the mid-1970s. Because coins are never just about metal and design. They are reflections of society and the era that create. To truly understand the 1975 and 1976 10 new pence coins, we need to place them in the wider context of British history during the mid-1970s. Coins are never created in isolation. They are products of their time, reflecting the society, economy, and culture in which they circulated. The mid-1970s was a challenging period for Britain. The country faced economic struggles, rising inflation, and frequent strikes. The oil crisis of the early 1970s had caused energy shortages and increased the cost of living. Many people felt the pressure in their daily lives, whether it was through higher prices in shops or uncertainty about jobs and wages. In this atmosphere, even the smallest details of everyday life, like the coins people used, became symbols of continuity and reliability. Decimalization had only been introduced a few years earlier, in 1971. Before that, Britain had used the old system of pounds, shillings, and pence, which could be confusing and complicated for many. Switching to the decimal system was a huge change, and not everyone welcomed it at first. By 1975 and 1976, however, people were finally becoming comfortable with the new coins. The 10 new pence had established itself as a trusted part of the system, making life simpler and transactions smoother. At the same time, Queen Elizabeth II remained a symbol of stability. Her portrait on the coins was more than just decoration. It was a reminder of the monarchy's role as a constant presence during times of uncertainty. While governments changed, economies rose and fell, and social tensions grew, the Queen's image remained the same, quietly reassuring people of continuity. The lion on the reverse side of the coin carried its own message. It spoke to Britain's long history, its traditions, and its sense of national pride. In a period when many people worried about the future, this small heraldic image on a coin offered a subtle reminder of strength and resilience. It's fascinating to think about how ordinary people experience these coins. Imagine a worker in 1975 being paid his wages in cash at the end of the week. Among the notes and coins in his envelope would likely be several 10 new pence pieces. They would be used for groceries, for bus fares, for a pint at the local pub. For millions of families, these coins were part of everyday life, circulating quietly through markets, shops, and homes. But they also had a cultural presence. Children collected them in jars or piggy banks, saving up for toys or small treats. Teenagers used them in jukeboxes, vending machines, and arcade games. Pensioners carried them in coin purses, carefully counting out exact change. Each coin passed through countless hands, becoming part of countless personal stories. For historians today, that's what makes these coins so fascinating. They are not just metal discs struck with designs. They are miniature witnesses of history. A 1975 or 1976 10 new pence coin has lived a life of its own, traveling through society, touching the lives of hundreds or even thousands of people before being tucked away in a drawer or passed into a collection. And so, when collectors look at these coins now, they see more than just money. They see echoes of 1970s Britain, the fashions, the music, the politics, and the daily struggles. They see a nation going through change, but holding on to its traditions at the same time. In our final part, we will bring everything together. We will reflect on what makes these coins important not only to collectors, but also to the story of Britain itself, and why they continue to capture interest decades after they were first minted. As we reach the end of our journey into the 1975 and 1976 10 new pence coins, it's worth stepping back and asking, why do these coins still matter today? After all, they were everyday objects, produced in the millions, used by ordinary people in their daily lives. And yet half a century later, they continue to fascinate collectors, historians, and anyone with interest in Britain's past. One reason is simple nostalgia. For those who grew up in the 1970s, these coins are part of their childhood memories. They remember the feel of the large 10-pence piece in their hands, the sound it made when dropped on a table, the way it shone when new. They remember using it to buy sweets, newspapers, or tickets. To them, these coins are not abstract pieces of history. They are personal, lived experiences captured in metal. Another reason is the artistry and symbolism. Arnold Mackin's portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, elegant and timeless, is one of the most iconic images of the 20th century. Christopher Ironside's heraldic lion connects back to centuries of English tradition. Together, they make the coin a small but powerful symbol of national identity, carrying both continuity and pride. Collectors also value these coins because they tell a story of change. Decimalization was one of the biggest shifts in British monetary history, and the 10 new pence coin was right at the heart of it. By 1975 and 1976, it had become familiar, trusted, and essential in daily life. Looking back now, these coins mark a moment when Britain moved from an old system to a new one, from pounds, shillings, and pence to the modern decimal system we still use today. There is also the question of rarity and value. While most of these coins are common in circulated condition, the proof issues, the uncirculated examples, and the rare errors give collectors a challenge and a thrill. Hunting for the perfect example, completing a set, or finding a hidden treasure keeps the hobby alive and exciting. But beyond the market, the true value of these coins lies in their role as historical witnesses. They pass through the hands of millions of people, each coin carrying silent stories of work, family, and daily life in 1970s Britain. Every scratch, every mark, tells us that this coin lived a life before it ended up in a collection or a display case. Today, as Britain moves forward into a new era under a new monarch, coins from the Elizabethan period have taken on even greater meaning. They are reminders of a long reign, of a queen who became a symbol of stability through decades of change. And the 1975 and 1976 10 new pence coins are part of that legacy. So, whether you are a serious collector searching for proof coins, a historian interested in Britain's past, or simply someone who remembers using these coins as a child, there is something special about them. They are small, yes, but they carry with them big stories. Stories of tradition, of change, of pride, and of memory. And that is why the 1975 and 1976 10 new pence coins are more than just currency. They are little pieces of history, waiting to be discovered, treasured, and remembered.